Everybody, thank you for joining us for the WR Meadows podcast. I'm Riley, and with me, as always, is Jason.
How's it going?
And with us today, we have a very special guest. We have Blair Davies. Blair, how are you doing today?
I'm great, thank you. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. Well, thank you for being here. So before we get into today's questions, Blair, can you give us a slight background of your job experience and where you've gone and where you are today, and just a general overarch of your career?
Well, it's a winding path, but the general theme is having been involved with engineering-based businesses my whole career, both in the building industry, but also in tech, automotive, aerospace. And it's all been based on, high design-oriented manufacturing and construction practices. I'm an engineer with a business degree and a bit of a nerd around all this, how we get all these things done.
And one of the reasons we're speaking to you, Blair, is because of your background in modular building or offsite building. And just for our listeners out there, you work with Catalyst Offsite. We'll link to that website page in our social posts and everything. But I guess the question for us, and it's something that Riley and I don't particularly know much about, but modular building or offsite building, it seems to be more popular now than ever before. Do you think there's a reason behind that? How has it evolved, and how is it becoming more of a popular construction technology, or a construction, a popular type of construction in general?
Well, the concept of modular construction's been around for decades and decades and decades, mostly in things like work camps and military and so forth, not very architectural. And what's happened in the last decade or so is a whole lot of interest and use in what one might call more architectural buildings that you'd see around your town. And then the biggest driver is the shortage of housing, and the compound annual growth rate of housing is very high, and the cost to build is also very high. And the time to what they call put heads in beds is very high as well. So all of those get solved with modular construction. And what I'm really referring to is modular, non-combustible, mid-rise construction. There is a lot of modular home building. It tends to be sort of custom homes and so forth. That's not the space I understand. What I'm focused on is multi-residential, non-combustible modular construction.
So is that like, would that be like apartment complexes, housing complexes, things like that nature?
Yeah, 4 to 10 story or even higher, steel frame, multi-residential for all sorts of geographies in any place in the world. So the drivers are the need for more housing, better construction, faster construction, better quality, less impact to the environment. All those things modular construction is in line with.
Blair, how did you go from engineer with a business degree to modular construction? If you could bring us to that connection.
You don't have enough time. But in the building industry, I sort of started from the outside of the building because I have an expertise in facades. And then I was looking at how we could do facades on a prefab wall. I had some time in that world, and then, keep moving on your way in. And I connected with a gentleman named Julian Bowron, who's my business partner in all of this. And he's an expert in volumetric modular. So I came to him with an interest in facade, wall, and he said, I got this idea around about the full volumetric modular. So we launched a company called Metallock, which is another system or product that we have. It's a frame, basically. And then we also have Catalyst Offsite, where we help people transition to offsite construction. And one of the biggest interesting things going on is it's not the traditional modular builders that are calling us. It's developers and builders who are starting businesses to do modular construction. And to some extent, it's because they went off and got orders. They went off and get deals from sometimes governments and cities and private enterprise. They're oftentimes building for their own construction. And so they need somebody who has a product and a service to help accelerate their ability to do this kind of thing.
And then how are these companies transitioning? Like, what do you see as the biggest hurdle when they make that transition to more modular building?
I actually I did a podcast with the Modular Building Institute, and I have an article on my LinkedIn about this very issue. So it's a little lengthy, but let me just very quickly say, you have to turn your head 180 degrees when you go from traditional construction to modular. So first of all, you have to design a product. You have to design the frame and the room and all the internal finishings and things like that. And you have to put a lot of design up front. So you need to get that down to all the fasteners, like really, really careful design. And when you think of traditional construction, relatively schematic drawings are sent out there to the marketplace for custom buildings. In this situation, you're going to build a standard product. You're going to try to keep it down to a minimum of complexities, and then you're going to design a building around that standard product. And that is 180 degrees from, and so the biggest mistake folks do is they design a building and then they hand it to somebody like us and they say, how do I make this modular? And really that's the backwards way. It should really start with the business case. Where are we trying to build a business? Really, are we not just build a building, but build a business, and then design out your products for your business and then launch it into buildings.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting because that is kind of different way to do things. These companies you're working with, so who would do the actual design for the company? Because I'm guessing you're working with contractors, right?
The most interesting group of people are actual developers.
I see. Okay.
And we do our work in design in a modeling software called SolidWorks. And there are other other modeling products, and you end up with a volumetric, parametric model, not a 2D, Revit model or something like that. It's true objective object design. So we can do it, or what we're really trying to do is enable people to do it. So we like to say we want to teach people how to fish, not do the fishing.
Right.
There are good SolidWorks folks out there. They don't always come from construction. They don't have to. And with the guidance of experts like ourselves, they can really dig in and drive a process, I said, really detailed right down to the last fastener.
And then the developers, these real estate developers, are they adding staff to do this design work?
Yes, and they're building factories. And like they're buying space, leasing space, or in some cases building factories.
Oh, wow.
And then they're, we're helping them figure out how to fit out that factory. And then, they're dropping products into these factories and getting them built on job sites.
I see. Interesting.
Okay, so my next question, you've mentioned it a little bit, is Catalyst Offsite. Tell us about that. What is it all about there? What is your elevator pitch and then differentiation? Like, tell us all about it.
Sure. So we help people transition to world-class offsite construction. There's very few people doing that. We have a couple competitors. I think our competitive differentiation is around steel, non-combustible construction, which then there's even fewer people who understand that. So my partner especially has got a very strong capability in three things. One is steel fabrication and supply chains. The other is manufacturing, which is really a manufacturing discussion, and construction. So those three things, and I came from tech and automotive and aerospace with a very high degree of precise design up front. Those are the things that we have in special, extra doses for the marketplace. And frankly, a lot of modular construction, people are trying to do construction, but under a roof. And what we're promoting and being successful with is real manufacturing. So And what that, a simple example of that is try not to have any decisions being made on the factory floor. And so when you think about construction in a building, all those people on a job site are making decisions. Oh, the window's off by an inch. Oh, let's move it over, or let's shim here, or oh, the pipe won't run there, so let's run it there. And you want to get rid of all of that complexity and basically have a manufacturing organization. So when they make your car in a factory, Bob and Jane are not making decisions on the factory floor on where your door should go. That's the kind of precision that you should be thinking about in manufacturing a building.
The Model T of buildings. I get it.
So one of the things, just thinking through this entire process, because it seems really fascinating, and it seems like there's a lot of logistics to get everything correct, like you say, getting it precise, getting like that one design down, and then using that as a model for everything you're creating. But one of the things I'm thinking about is just transportation. So these companies are buying warehouses, creating these places where they're going to build these buildings. How difficult is the transportation aspect of moving like these rooms? We have a meme on our website about almost like a Lego piece being put together as a building. And I'm assuming these pieces are fairly big. Like, is that a huge concern, or what is like the logistics of once you get to the point where you're creating this modular building, getting that to the actual job site?
So that is a key factor, and so you have to design that process in. So it all starts with the frame, and Julian, my partner, and us. Julian invented metal lock, METALOQ, and that frame is a strong, rigid, lightweight, cost-effective frame. It's actually a kit. You can almost think about shipping a bunch of pieces to a factory and putting it together with bolts. I don't want to say what company that should remind you of, but we were thinking of shipping it with an Allen wrench as a joke. And so that very rigid, precise frame is what causes all the success. So for an example, on transportation, what one wants to do is top lift it. So sometimes people have poor design, and because of that, it's not rigid. They have to lift it from the bottom with straps and so forth. So you can think of all the complexity where you take this, you take your Lego piece and put it down, and now it's not down in the right place. And number two, how do you get the straps out so they don't cause a problem? But when you top lift, you can move the thing and you can drop it in the right place. And also the frame, the worst time for a modular building is when it's being shipped down the road and the truck does this. And so once again, a lightweight but rigid frame, so that when the truck bed goes like this, then the module, the drywall inside the module and the tile work and all that kind of stuff doesn't crack.
Interesting. And this will be my final question. So sounds like more companies are transitioning. You're transitioning traditional companies into more modular construction businesses. Where would you think the future is for this type of construction, the modular offsite construction? What's the future of this trend?
Well, I think it scales considerably, of course. You expected me to say that. But what's interesting is the product suppliers, and maybe you're one of them, are starting to implement products for this field. And I won't reflect on yours, but for example, wiring harnesses that you think of in cars, that's being used instead of having somebody string wire through studs. Power over Ethernet is being used so that you have very low voltages going through systems, reducing the chance of fire and electric shock, etc. Ways to connect these modules automatically when they drop down into the frames or drop down into the building. We have some other inventions on a locatable halo. They call it a halo is the thing that picks up the module. So we have a technology we're inventing to help shift this, turn it, put it really in place, which will allow, for example, the crane operator to basically build the building. And, so I think what you're going to see is, you're moving from, hey, I know how to do modular that's very design oriented up front and it's using fairly traditional materials, steel, tile, carpet, so forth, drywall, whatever. And then more and more parts are going to get made for modular. And then where that goes is, who applies that where. I think buildings get taller. I think the costs come down and the ability to make these products all over the world expands.
And sorry, Riley, I have one more question, just building on that, just thinking about this. And one of probably the big drivers too is how quick these buildings can be constructed, right? Is that a big benefit of modular construction?
Well, the whole concept is that you're doing things in parallel. So you're getting your plans in place. You're doing your site plan approvals. You're doing all your civil engineering work. You're probably building a foundation. You're probably building a podium where parking would be. The podium needs to be precise. You can just perceive that if you're going to build a precise building, it has to start on something. So all that stuff, say that takes 6 months, 9 months. Meanwhile, all the modules are being built so that when the site's ready, the building can just stack and go. So yeah, the overall schedule could be cut in half. And in some cases, and I think in the future, the cost will be lower. It's not lower, frankly. It is lower if you think of designing your product and using it for multiple buildings. That makes it lower. But the real driver is how fast you could earn your revenue, or how fast you could put people in these places. That's the real kicker.
Right.
The opportunity cost. That makes sense. Jason, any other questions?
Nope, that's it for me.
Okay. Blair, we appreciate you coming to the show. We end with a kind of quirky question just to kind of humanize the people. So a quirky question today is, if you were a candy bar, what would you be? And we do want an explanation, because I hope you put some thought into this.
Well, I deal with a lot of architects, and they're very creative, and sometimes they ask me for my opinion, and I tell them I wear black socks every day. I wear the same boots all winter. So I'm simple, strong, so I'd be that straightforward, chocolate Hershey bar that's, tasty, lasting, traditional, and, very, very straightforward.
It never goes out
complexity. No complexity.
All right, Jason, same question to you.
Oh, I got to answer this now?
Yes.
Man, well, I love Hershey bars. I love the answer. I guess I'd be the same way too, except that, let's say that I would prefer to be a Kit Kat bar.
Good choice.
I cannot give any kind of reasoning. I just like Kit Kats, so I'm picking that one.
I think I'd go with Sour Patch watermelons, because those are my favorite, and you get the good mix of sweet and sour, so you just never know what you're gonna get.
Is that a candy bar though? That's like.
It's a candy. If I had to be a bar, I'd probably do Reese's Peanut Butter Cup, because again, those are just delicious.
That's not even a bar either.
Yes, it is. That is a bar.
It's like a cup.
But it's in the bar section, so I'm gonna
All right,
overrule on that.
Fine.
Okay,
Can't
well,
take
that's
it
our
too
show.
seriously,
Thank you,
eh?
everyone, for watching. Blair, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. We learned a lot, so hopefully our listeners will as well.
So catalystoffsite.com and metallock.com.
Check it out. All right. Well, everybody, that's our show. Thank you.
Thank you.